Well, welcome back to another episode of In Conversation with. And today I have an amazing guest. You're going to love hearing her story. And then we're going to dive deep into different parts of that story as she is continually evolving to be and do the best version of herself. And our guest today is Mariana Missakian. So, welcome, Mariana.
Thank you. Thank you, Lauren. So lovely to be here.
Yeah, we're excited to get to know you better as well. So we're going to dive right in. We like to do that. And I just want to share with you a little bit about Mariana. She's got a nice little story to share here. So she originally grew up Armenian, was born in Lebanon, and lived there until she fell head over heels in love with a boy, got married, moved to Dubai at the age of 18. And we're all wondering what her mother and dad thought of that. But for 20 years, she lived and worked in the city of Dubai. She was a corporate superstar in stilettos until the day she became a full-time mom. And then she moved to Suburbia and lost her identity. And I think there's already people I know myself can relate to that. Who she was so tightly interlocked with her job that she didn't know who she was anymore without a job, a title. And she became the lady in spandex, wearing her hair in a messy bun in a perfectly manicured, gated society. And she tried and failed on most days to figure out how to best answer this question. So, what do you do? And it was in 2018 that she started collecting words, capturing thoughts and emotions, writing down conversations, situations, and reactions to figure out how to best answer that question. So, what do you do? And in 2021, she published her first book, The Suburbia Lady. It's a satire memoir on women identity. And the book is a compilation of 40 short stories on who we become when we no longer fit in, and when we believe in our stories and empower our voice and start living off script. Now, Mariana now spends her time offering safe spaces for women to share their stories, to shift the conversation from what do you do to who you are, to guide women to shape their identity stripped from job and title. And when she's not writing in her favorite coffee shop, Mariana spends her time reading, speaking, cooking, playing Nerf gun with her son, and watching football with her husband, and just doing anything to keep her out of the gym. And so she does still live in Dubai with her husband, Fatty, and they have a wonderful little son, Enzo, who's 9 years old. So that is such a great little story. I can't wait to dive into different parts of that, Mariana. So I'm going to ask you this question. Let's go to the meat of it. Let's go to that moment that you felt that you weren't being the best of who you could be when you started, when you became that mom, and when you lost that sense of identity, because our identity goes through seasons. Can you kind of dive into that for us?
Yes, I think that was the lowest part of my life because up to that point, as you said, that I was a superstar. I knew exactly what I was supposed to do to get the medal at the end of the day. And I did that. I did that exceptionally well for 15 years. But when I became a mom, a full-time mom, there was no roadmap, there was no framework that you do this and you get that gold medal, or you get that tap in the back, or you get that recognition.
Yeah.
And I craved that. I craved that recognition. I craved the word to recognize what I was doing and the role I was
Mm.
playing, because I was so used to that, to the public recognition.
Mm. Yeah, that's I think a lot of people can relate to that, because there are times where we are just kind of living in our high life and doing what we do best, but then it gets to that point where things are have kind of really gone off track. And that can be again, a lot of people still dealing with the big changes from 2020 and how those are all playing out in our lives, whether it's a health issue, a relationship issue, and as you said, just kind of shifting in the career focus, becoming a mom. Yeah. So what did you when you said that you felt really low at that point when we what was there something inside of you that you know that you felt like your life was more than what it was at that low point?
Not really, not really, really. It wasn't one day I woke up and I said, I want to do something about it. It took me 5 years to realize that this cannot go on. And those 5 years, I was living in a denial because I thought that there was one version of myself and there was one version of the life I should have. So there, and better to say seasons. I thought that life happens in one season from the start to the end. And because I wasn't the best version of myself in that situation, I thought I was a failure. I didn't know how to deal with the new situation and the new season because society never prepared me for that phase in life. Society kept on telling me, and my 9-year-old self kept on promising me that if you work hard, you get the job, the title, the house on the car, and the car, you are set for life. That's where the story ended.
Yeah.
And I felt when I lost all that, so if my story ended there, then my life ended there. And I didn't know what I was supposed to do with this new reality. And I kept on doubting my choices. I kept on doubting my decisions. I kept on doubting my strength. And I kept on digging a deeper and a deeper hole because I couldn't fit in anymore. And I couldn't live up to the image of society.
Yeah. And what I love what you said, Mariana, is that it took 5 years. And I think, well, that was one thing you said that really hit me. And I know people listening I know people are going to find comfort in that because we all think that we're supposed to manage change really easily, and change comes. And again, recently the whole changes in 2020 and how these are getting played out in people's lives. I mean, it still might be 2 or 3 years on the road that you really start getting back on track. But going back to that expectation that you had, that idea that you have this one season in life. I mean, just this morning, I've been really looking into some research on the evolution of our identity, and that is kind of an old-fashioned idea that we're going to live this one life. Can you kind of pull some things out from your growing up that would have kind of supported that ill-advised expectation that you had this one aim in life, and once you got there, you made it?
Yeah, I think I was reading something similar also online a few months ago with my constant search and understanding of identity and season. And they say that when growing up, and that's true for myself as well, you see your dad having one job, you live in one house, you go to the same school, and that kind of creates a sense of stability, a sense of comfort, that having one thing and one thing only, and not change, because change is not stable, change is risky. And certainly me growing up as a minority in Lebanon during the war, stability created more comfort for us. We were able to survive because of stability. We stayed in one place, we had one job. But I didn't realize how that affected my upbringing and my thinking of what life should be like. Having one job, having a job, and not seeing beyond job and title. And it took 5 years, because it took a lot of soul searching, self-searching, understanding, but also it took a lot of asking questions and kind of accepting my own biases. Why is it that I believed in these things?
Yeah.
And then I start asking, what does success look for me? What is it that I really want to do? Before I started telling myself stories, before society started telling me stories of what they wanted me to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you say it took 5 years, but I do think we should put that a little bit in perspective, is that you did leave a very comfortable kind of existence in a job that you knew well, that you'd had for a long time. And anyone listening that has become a mother knows that the shift into motherhood, somehow society kind of puts on that we should just kind of automatically know what we're supposed to do, and that's certainly not the case. And so there is a lot of fumbling. And I think also, because I lived in Dubai too with my young children, it's in places like that we're not surrounded by our extended families, and we don't have the aunties and uncles and sisters and moms and grandmas to rely on for those, conversations. And it's difficult. And I think I don't think we give ourselves credit in a podcast that was actually aired last month. We talked to Akua, and she talked about how the change from her mother growing up in Ghana, and then they took her when she was 5 to LA, and how her mother arrived with her and other young children, and all of a sudden she didn't have that extended family that she had in Ghana. I mean, you just don't have to worry about that. So I think as women, we do find ourselves in that situation. Can you speak on that? Because I think motherhood is really tough when you don't have that support.
Yeah, it was, I was all alone. I'm away from family. I didn't have anyone. And also, apart from family, I didn't have a community, because my community at that point was a professional community. I didn't have any life outside the office, outside the corporate world. So when I left the corporate world, I also left my support system, if you may. And people working in the corporate world wouldn't relate to my experience as a full-time mom. They would just tell me, it's all in your head, get over yourself. This is not, you're making things up. This is not how it's supposed to be. Pick yourself up. And I kept on telling them, but I feel there's something wrong. I feel that this is not how it's supposed to be, and this is not how it's supposed to be. Oh, you'll get over it. Don't worry. Just press it in. And for me, I refused to press that feeling. And I wanted to know, why was it that I was feeling this way? And why was it that society was not acknowledging my feelings? These were true feelings I was going through, a sense of loss, a sense of grief. And looking around me with no family and no friends, I had to rely on social media, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And social media kept on telling me, you're wrong. Social media kept on telling me, you're the one in the wrong. Look at us.
Yeah.
We're so happy. Look at us mothers. We're so happy. We have the 6-packs, but we also have the job. We have the corporate job. And that just drove me crazy, because I didn't have a community to just have honest conversations with.
Yeah. And so you touched on a little bit about this question of, so what do you do? And that was obviously a trigger that set off this doubt in your mind, this frustration. What was it about that question?
That question was so interesting. It went through so many stages. So the first time I left my job and I became a mom, and that question came up, I used to say, Google me, because by that time I was still relevant superstar. So people would Google me and they would see all the successes I have done and all the achievements I have done. So I lived with that Google me thing for the first year or so. But then after the second year, Google dropped me in their rating. So now I was on the 5th page or the 10th page. So that answer wasn't relevant anymore. So I used to say, so my answer changed. And I say, you know what? I used to be a corporate star, but now I'm taking a break, a year or two, to become a full-time mom, but I'm planning to go back to work. So that was the answer for the second year, still trying to fit myself in a box where people would accept me. And then by the time I got to the 3rd year, and it was obvious I was not going back to work, I started saying, I'm a mom. And that was not enough for people. I'm a mom was never an answer. They would just wait there. And what else? What else are you? What else do you do? Don't tell us a mom. They would take the mom for granted. And the worst thing that happened, it was not the society taking it for granted. The worst thing that happened is that I myself started taking my role for granted. I started thinking, oh, I'm not good enough. If they are not validating me, if society is not validating my role as a mom, then why am I standing behind it? So there must be something wrong with me. I must go out and do something else, so that they are validated and I am accepted.
Yeah. It's just, and I think even people listening as well, it's you've moved from one environment like the corporate and then choosing to be a mom. I mean, I work with other people that are moving in different periods of their life, moving into retirement, moving into not being able to work for health reasons, people that have to, take care of aging parents, people that, are moving countries, and everything changes and everything shifts. And you mentioned about in 2018 that you just started collecting words and capturing thoughts and emotions and writing down conversations. And so how does doing something like that help you to kind of find who you are? I mean, or do you recommend that? Did it help?
Yes, it helped immensely because I reached to a point and said, I can't be crazy. I am not crazy. These are authentic, real feelings that I am going through. And if nobody will validate me, nobody will validate my feelings, I myself will validate them. And I found writing these conversations that I used to have with people around me, or situations that I find myself crazy, or foreign situations that I find myself where I started writing them down to see what is it that the lessons they are bringing to me. First of all, I wrote them to validate that these actually happened to me and are happening to me. And second of all, to see, so what's going on in here, to dissect them and see what lessons are they bringing to me, or where is the opportunity in what is happening now. And from one word to another, from one conversation, from one situation to another, there was a pattern emerging. If you want, now I'm talking about it, it was like a cocoon, a butterfly emerging from a cocoon, because every conversation brought me closer to the next version of myself, to the next season of my life.
Yeah, that's amazing. So you did end up publishing a book, The Suburbia Lady. And how has that been able to kind of capsulate who you are, and how is that book sort of taking you on a new journey, then a new season?
When I first started writing or collecting words and writing the sentences, I never knew that they would end up in a book and that I would become an author and publish a whole book. As I said, I was just writing to vent out and to validate my feeling. But I had written so much is that I had to stop one day and I said, what can I do with them? These are all stories of real mothers happening in the real world, and nobody's talking about them. When I open the TV, the radio, or I go pick up a book from the bookstore, this is not what I'm reading. I'm reading the glossy version of what it is to be a super mom. So I said there is an opportunity there to talk about the real stories and to amplify the real voices. So I put on my author hat and I said, okay, we are doing this. We are telling the truth, and the book is gonna invite other mothers to share their truth as well. It's gonna be a platform for all of us to come with our voices and stories.
And so, into 2021, you did publish the book, and have you found that it's resonating with women as you get together with different? Oh, can you share a little bit about that?
That's the best thing. I say that I published my book not to become a best-selling author or not to sell million copies. I always say I publish the book to start conversation. So I give you a book, we start a conversation, you give the book to another mother woman, and we start another conversation. That's what I envision for my book, to invite women to have these conversations. And then just even the first month or so of the book launching, I kept on receiving messages for women I don't know, women who were recommended to read these books. And they would say, Mariana, as if I was the one writing these stories. Mariana, I could hear your voice in my head as if you are looking at my life and writing my life. Thank you so much. I cried, I laughed, I hugged my son, I hugged my family. Thank you for being authentic. And that for me, it was just, I didn't expect that. I didn't expect that reaction. And every time someone says, as if you were looking into my life and talking about my life, and thank you for validating me, validating her, I felt this is why I wrote the book. Because when I was down in that hole looking for someone to validate my feelings, I didn't find that someone. And for me to be that person to validate the feelings of those women is super humbling and very emotional.
It's amazing. I think there's just nothing that is better than sharing our authentic stories with people. And just as you talk, I think about, and I had a conversation earlier today about the enormous amount of changes our world has gone through just in the last 10 years. And I was, even talking about, I had started my business just over 10 years ago, and how what I needed to know to run that business then, which was really pretty much online, and what I do and what I know now and what I'm involved in now is so different. And there's just so much that I've had to learn, and so much that I've been put into really in uncomfortable situations of, not knowing things and having to learn that, we really are in this huge changing period of life. And there's been so much change over the last 10 years. And just in the conversation with you, focusing on just how our identity changes when one thing happens, when we leave a job and we start a different season in our life, and how that can happen. So how do you how you said you weren't able to live the best version of yourself, and so now I'm going to ask, are you able to be the best version of who you are and live that life out now?
Yes, the thing, going back to the question, what do you do? And me trying to find excuses, or me trying to find fancy titles to answer that question. My tipping point came of being me and the best version of me. That tipping point came when someone would ask me, what do you do? And I would stand tall, confident and comfortably and say, I'm a mom. The funny thing was, I always wanted to be a full-time mom, but somehow I ended up doubting my choice and my decision because I didn't find external validation. But when I went through that soul-searching journey for 5 years, I realized that this is who I wanted to be. And I am being the best version of myself because I am uplifting my values. What do I stand for? And when I am the best version of myself, is that I am when I am upholding my values of family, of being there for my son, of raising him the way I want to raise as a full-time mom.
Yeah.
And this is who I am now, talking about seasonality. And I'm always conscious of this because my life changed when I became a mom, and I am also full-time mom. And I am also aware that new changes are coming and the new season are coming. So I am always conscious to live the moment fully, to live my current identity fully, to honor me being me fully, because you never know when the next season will come.
That's right. You never know. Yeah. And so what is it right now that gets you focused on, I would say, your purpose, your why, and that you have a vision for? What is it in this season of your life that's really kind of putting that passion, that fire, that inspiration behind you being that best version?
For me, is the conversations I have. It's very important when I meet women, when I meet mothers, when I meet working or non-working mothers, is to be in that moment and have a conversation. Give them the opportunity to peel the onion, if you may, peel all the layers, and for them to come to a realization who they are. Or the starting point is to come to a realization that what they do is not who they are, and how would they like to move to discovering who they are and their purpose and their impact on the world. So I am very mindful and being in the moment when I am with these women. I am also very mindful of creating safe spaces to have these conversations. So I show up with my authentic self in any situation, and that gives an opportunity for the women themselves to show their authentic selves and to show up the way they are.
Yeah. I mean, just like you, I'm a big fan of conversations, hence just this conversation right now. We learn so much from each other. It's just absolutely amazing. So
I just
go
want to
ahead.
say, sorry, I remembered something when
Yeah.
during those 5 years, of course, I had a lot of therapy, and one of the therapy sessions, my therapist told me, when we walk into a room, we walk in with all our insecurities, we walk in with our fears, we walk in with our failures, and we think the person in front of us is gonna judge us on all this big cloud that we're carrying on our shoulders. But the truth is, the person walking towards us, she has the same insecurities, she has the same fear, she has the same thing. So, what I try to do now in these conversations or these stages and spaces that I offer is that I try to absorb the woman coming in. I try to have the humility to understand how heavy is the weight that she's carrying. And instead of me projecting my insecurities on her, I try to offer her a safe space to offload all the burden that she's carrying. And once she offloads that burden, that's when the authentic conversation and the connections happen.
Can happen, yeah. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm very much, of course, the be and to do the best version of yourself. And I've had people say to me, and in the first book I wrote, isn't that quite selfish to do that? Isn't it selfish to be looking at being and doing the best version of you? And just as you expressed, the reality is until we can come to terms of who we are and to find our own strong points, our own stars in the sky, and recognize our own insecurities and deal with those. It's only when we can figure out how to be and do the best version of ourselves in those situations that we can do what you just expressed, and that is to begin to listen to other women, to other people, to open ourselves up, to absorb who they are. And it's then that we can have these conversations. And yeah, I commend you on it, because it's because you have been able to do that you are able to also have this great impact with the people around you. It's amazing. I'm going to ask you a question. Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I came to a realization that vulnerability is a power. Yes. In the corporate world, we are taught to be strong, to be powerful, to leave emotions at home, to make things happen, make the deal, the art of making the deal. And this is how I was groomed for 15 years. And again, that I couldn't bring those skills to the new season of my life. I had to learn new skills, or I had to uncover those skills that they were hidden deep inside me. And then I realized that vulnerability, to standing strong and straight and say, I am failing, help me, is that where I regained the power. I gave the power to me instead of giving the power to the society so they would judge me and bring me back and forth the way they want to.
Yeah. And you talk about failing there. And so I do want to ask, you don't have to say what is your biggest failure, but what is a failure that really stands out for you And what did you learn from that?
I think I wrote about this one day, and I said I have never failed in my life. The first, because failure is not in our dictionary. It comes from our culture, from our background. We are a minority, left our lands, came to another country as a guest. So failure is not in our dictionary. We have to strive to win every time. So when I failed the first time, I was 33 years old, and that was when I became a mom. And I didn't recognize it. I didn't accept it because I didn't know what failure was and I didn't know how to deal with it. So it all came together. And that's why now I teach my son to fail. I teach him to fail early, to fail often. So he builds the resilience to pick himself up.
Yeah.
So he also understands how failure looks like. And it's okay to fail. We are not superheroes. We are not super people. We are built to fail. And if we don't fail, we don't learn. It's because it took me so long at 33 years to fail. It took me 5 years to learn how to deal with it. But if I had failed before, it would have taken maybe a year or two to pick myself up.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing of recognizing that when we do fail, it means that we are actually pushing those boundaries. And you've given your son such a wonderful opportunity to not stay in the comfort zone, but to just try something new, to try something new. And the reality is in our world today that is changing so fast, and we have so many more changes coming, that there's only one way, and that is to build that resilience to fail and to keep hold of that self-worth inside and not let it get crumbled down. Yeah, amazing. I'm going to ask you a question, and that is, what is your favorite word, and why is it your favorite word or phrase or quote?
This is so I have a new word now. A few years ago, before becoming a mom, there was another word I would associate myself with. I would associate myself with the word misunderstood, because people wouldn't understand my drive and my craving for power. They wouldn't understand that. And for me, I thought that was so normal. Why wouldn't you understand? So I kept on associating myself with the word misunderstood. But lately, a new word walked into my life. It just fell in my lap. And I was, where have you been? But everything happens at the right time for the right reason. So this new word now that I identify myself with is Ubuntu. I heard it in a documentary, and I had to Google it and to find out more. So it's a South African Zulu word, Ubuntu, and it means humanity. It's a philosophy of how humans connect and how humans become humans. And it says, I can only be who I am if I allow you to be who you are.
Yeah.
So I just love that. This summarizes the whole concept of community, lifting each other up, being there for one another, having conversations, having stages, and having safe spaces to lift each other up. And I can only, as a human, be the best version of myself if I enable you to become the best version of yourself. So together we lift each other up.
And that is such a core concept of something that, yeah, I completely relate to. And of course, community is very big for me. But can you talk a little bit about, how does community fit for you, and how important is it, and what does it look like today for you?
Community is everything. I finished my book, The 40th Story, by me celebrating my community, because I am nothing without my community. My community is what makes me, what gives me strength, what gives me power and hope to go on. And some days are tough, we don't wake up every day with a whole of sunshine in our heart. We are human. Some days are tougher than the others. Sometimes we need to dig deeper to get out in the morning. But I do remind myself when it's tough, why am I doing it for? And I'm doing all that I'm doing because of my community. When I was in the early years of me being a full-time mom, I said earlier in the interview, I didn't have a community around me. I didn't identify with people who looked like me, shared the same fears, insecurities, and the same hope. And that's why I kept on thinking, I'm alone. And if I am alone, that means I'm a failure.
Yeah.
But when I met the community, when I met people who were like me, who had the same fears, insecurities, anxieties, the same hope for a better future, and we started sharing experiences and stories, I felt that I finally belong.
Yeah.
And I write in my book, I say 15 years in the corporate world in the city, I was trying so hard to fit in. I was changing my colors. I was changing the way I looked, the way I spoke, the way I did business to fit in so that they would think I was one of them. But a community, there's a sense of belonging, which means you come as you are. They accept you the way you are and you accept them back. And there's power in that.
Yeah, power in that. That's beautiful, actually. I love that whole concept of community. I'm going to ask you a little kind of change direction here a little bit and focus a little bit on your son. So, what would you say what is one of the most important things that you've learned from your son?
He teaches me every day. I think I'm so grateful that I have the opportunity to be with him and have these conversations. The best time of my day is when I pick up my son from school and we have conversations. The first question I ask him when I pick him up from school is, what made you happy? The second question I ask is, what question you ask today? And the third one is, what went bad? What did you learn today? And each answer he gives me to that question, it widens my world. It widens my mindset and perspective of how the world is functioning and how the world is functioning at an early young age. It actually, talking to my son, having these conversations, it gives me a window that how I became who I became, because I can see how his brain is developing, how his intuitions are developing, how his thinking is developing. And that is just beautiful. He opens a world into me, into my own self that I didn't know that it exists. A few days ago, I was stuck on my way back home, I took the wrong turn and I got stuck in a 1 hour horrible traffic. I came home, I was upset, I was angry, I was hungry, and he could see it on my face. I was just, don't talk to me. I had the don't talk to me face. And he comes to me with his biggest smile and he tells me, Mama, what is the one good thing that happened to you today? That's it. He didn't ask me, how are you? Why are you sad? Why are you going through this? He could actually see me and he diffused me with that one question.
Yeah.
That what was that one good thing that happened to you today? And he, ever since he asked me that question a few days ago, I reevaluated my whole 2022. Because we have the tendency to focus on the things that went bad and we exaggerate them and we lift them up and we put them on a pedestal, the bad things that happened to us. But ever since he asked me that question a few days ago, I have been actually flipping the scale and asking myself every day, what is the one good thing that happened to you in 2022? And I realized there were so many amazing things that happened in 2022. Yes, I had doubts and fears and low times.
Yeah.
So this is what I learned from my son, a window to my own soul and self-reflection.
Yeah, that's amazing. I love how you have opened up, just the conversations that you have with your son, and it shows the power of motherhood and how important it is to do that. And of course, myself, I've had long conversations with both my daughters, who are now adults, but it's just been life-changing. And I've always said that those that invest in our children are investing in our future, and that's what you're doing, because unless we actually focus on our children and have these conversations with them and allow them to have relationships with us, as you're having your son have a relationship with you. It's not just talking, do this, do that. It's actually, him having that, emotional intelligence to perceive your situations and to ask you to put gratitude in your life, which we know is so powerful as well. It's absolutely beautiful.
A few weeks ago, Lorraine, I read a quote that just shocked me. It's a quote from Mother Teresa, and she said, if you want to heal the world, go home and love your children. And that for me was, yes, this is what it means for me to be a mother, a full-time mom, fully and completely, because I am not only raising or having these conversations with my son, because through him, I'm extending these conversations to his friend, to his class, to his school. And together, this is how we're healing the world and creating a better world.
Yeah, it's very much a multi-domino effect that is actually happening. Just bringing this back into how you are able to live and be and do the best version of yourself. You are talking about an awful lot of things that you're doing. I mean, you've written a book, you were dealing with a lot of things internally, trying to figure out how to be a mom for the first time. You've got a young child growing up, you have a husband, and you've got your own plans that you want to do, and things that you're doing now. How do you actually live a life that's balanced and is it balanced? Maybe it's crazy. I don't know.
Sometimes it does get crazy. And there was a time this year, especially, that I felt I've been being pulled into a million situation. And then one day I had to remind myself, we get carried away very easily. It's very easy. It's human nature. It's also important to find those minutes of silence and minutes of pause to calm down and reevaluate what we're doing. And if what we are doing is fitting into our purpose and being the best versions of ourselves. So one of my friends a few months ago put this question out there for me. And she said, is what you're doing serving the life that you're trying to create?
Yeah.
Amazing. And that question brings into perspective and evaluates everything that you are doing, or at least for me. So before I take a step forward, or before I commit to something or overcommit something, I just take a stand back and I say, will this serve the life I am trying to create? And most often the answer will be no. There is this notion of FOMO, right? And I see it in my friends, the fear of missing out. And when I see it in my friends, after I saw it in myself, I actually go to them and I tell them, stop just for a minute and ask yourself, am I doing this for the right reasons? Is this serving the life that I am trying to create? And ironically, most often the answer comes back, no, this is not serving the life that I am trying to create. So my to-do list shrinks tremendously when I bring back the focus of why I'm doing what I'm doing.
That's very, very interesting. Very, very good. I'm going to ask you another thing, and that is, I know that you're very big on your vision boards, which I am as well. And so how has vision boards played into you developing that sense of purpose and that sense of vision for yourself?
Doing my vision board was an extremely enlightening activity, and the things that it brought out, I never knew that I had them in me, or actually I had them, but they were buried away. When I started doing my vision board, I think it was 2018 or 2019, I started with the blank picture, obviously with the blank canvas, and I started putting the obvious things: a bigger house, a rose garden, a more expensive car. But the more a bigger bag, these were the obvious things. But then something happened within me, and I cannot explain how that happened. But from one thought to the other, from one image to the other, the vision board kept on bringing out inhibitions in me, or desires in me, and dreams of me I had that were hidden and closed and locked away somewhere in my brain. And it was after I have done my vision board, after a few hours, I looked at it and I was like, yes, that was something I always wanted to do since I was 8 years old, 9 years old, 10 years old. Where was that? Where was that? And one picture after the other, you could see, or I could see, a roadmap forming in front of me, jumping from one dream to another, from one desire to other desire. And this roadmap basically being weaved into, why am I changing? And why do I need to get out of the hole? And why do I need to wake up the next day? It was amazing. And then I do the vision board and put it somewhere in my room. And I print a small version of it and I put it in my wallet. And that's it. I don't think about it. I don't hold it and I say, come to me, come to me. It's just there. I think the most powerful thing was the exercise of doing it that took a few hours.
Yeah.
So, for example, I did my vision board in 2018. I have around 25 or 30 pictures on that vision board. And yesterday I looked at it. So yesterday I posted something. I finally was able to fit in a pair of jeans 6 years later.
Yeah.
And I just posted and I was congratulating myself for actually losing the weight. And then at night, I go to my room and I look at my vision board and I see that picture, that vision there, that goal was there on my vision board, the exact picture. And I go like, oh my God. We just have to manifest it and ask it and let it go. And the most important thing is not to rush things, because there are things on my vision board that took 20 years, that things I wanted when I was in my 20s that happened to me when I was in my 40s. And like this small example of losing the weight that took 6 years. And you referred to something like that earlier in our interview, is that we want everything now.
Yeah.
We want it now. We wake up and we say, okay, I'm going to become a better person. We expect to become a better person tomorrow, but nothing happens tomorrow. There's a step behind. The most important thing is for us every day to put one foot in front of the other.
Yeah.
That's all it asks from us, and be patient to receive the lessons and the blessings.
Yeah. I just love that. Yeah. I too find vision boards just, very enlightening. And it is that exercise of actually going through those thoughts and putting them there. And like you say, not even spending a lot of time thinking about it again, but it does unfold for sure. So we're getting down to wrapping up a little bit here, Mariana. And I just love how you have portrayed your life, been vulnerable with us so that we could dive into your story and see how you have been being and doing the best version of yourself. And how one of the things that has really stuck out for me was, just realizing that life isn't just one play game, one game of play, that there's these seasons that are going through. And I loved what you said about how you are just enjoying the moment of the season that you're in, and that there's changes that are coming up. But I do want to ask, your purpose has come through. We can feel that. What is this? Do you have a vision of where you're going in the next 6 months or a year? Is there something on your horizon that you're working towards?
At the moment, all my energy is focused on my PhD.
Yeah. So
So
can you explain that a bit? Yeah. Why are
so
you doing it? And what are you doing?
the PhD was on my vision board
Okay,
for the
good.
past 6, and I knew that the universe would send it my way when the time was right. After a few years back, I tried to actively pursue a PhD program, but it didn't feel right. I didn't find the right university. I wasn't sure what my research would be about. I wasn't in a good place where I am now. And I just let it go. I just knew that it wasn't the right time and the right place. And I let it go. In July, I was asked to deliver a speech at a university.
Okay.
It was the day I was flying. It was not going to happen. The chances of me going to the university, it was a big mess. But somehow the universe untangled all those difficulties and allowed me to go to university and interact with the students and talk to them and all that. And when I was at the university, I found out that they have a doctoral program and that I would be a suitable candidate for the doctoral program. And I applied. I still didn't know what my research was or would be. I applied for the program. And then when they sent me the questionnaire to fill, what will your research be? It just flew out of me. It just, the words starting flowing on that application form, on the questionnaire. I wasn't even aware of it. And so I decided that my research was going to be on narrative leadership and how to use the power of storytelling to inspire people, and how to use stories as a leadership tool to engage the employees. And that's why, again, coming back to your point, vision boards, manifestation, they are so important. And also to believe in the timing where everything happens. If I had aggressively pursued my PhD 4 years ago, I wouldn't have done it in narrative leadership. It wouldn't have been an organic development of my why, my purpose, and the impact I am hoping to create on my community. But I had to be patient. I had to let it go when the time was not right. And I had to be open and believe in the universe that it will stand at my way when the time was right. So this is why I am now fully invested in my PhD, because it will give me the tools to empower or enable people with their own authentic voice and their stories.
Yeah, I just love that. I'm so excited. I'm so excited to learn from you as you go through and you start doing the research and discovering things. One of the things that really hit me in this conversation is how you talked about that time of being in the corporate and really kind of sitting in the driver's seat and being driven by the expectations of others, being driven by expectations that you believed were on you. And just now in what you've said, you've talked about so calmly and assuredly that you knew before it wasn't the right time, now it's the right time. And then thinking back on that period of the interview or in the conversation where you talked about, it took you 5 years from leaving corporate to kind of really figuring out who you were. And it's all about that intuition, isn't it? It's all about really listening to that quiet voice and really knowing that we're all given as humans this intuition. And I can tell just from the way the conversation has gone that that's getting loud. It's not louder, but it's more felt inside of you, and it's more calming, isn't it? It's amazing, huh?
It's very grounding
Yeah.
when you know that it is happening for a reason, when you know that failure is an opportunity to learn and grow, when again things will happen when the time is right, and accepting the moment that you are in. It is very grounding and it's very empowering. and it fills you up with so much hope and confidence
Yeah.
to be the best version. And it tells you that you are doing the right thing,
You
and to be
are.
the best version, do the best version. Yes.
Yeah. I just love this.
Unfortunately, when you
Yeah, go ahead.
said about our intuition, unfortunately, the world outside and around us is becoming so loud
Yeah.
with non-stop content and non-stop projection. It is becoming something that I don't think our human brain has evolved fast enough to filter these things. That's why also I take it on my responsibility to consciously mute the word around me, because everybody will have an
Yep.
opinion. People we know or we don't know will have an opinion on something that they have no knowledge of. So those moments of silence, those moments of sitting, taking a pause and going back to, is this serving my life, or what kind of life I am trying to create, and what are my values? These are so important moments. And the louder, I guess, the world around us becomes, the more often we need to take these moments so that we are grounded again and we go back to our values.
That's really an important thing. Yeah. I mean, I just cherish my mornings where I'm without the device, I'm without things, and I'm just in the moment and writing and just getting that grounding, and also having the opportunity and the to not just the opportunity, but feeling it like it's okay. It took me a while to, some days it's just not working. It just doesn't, it's not happening, and just taking time, and it's like, okay, it'll happen another time, and knowing that that's the right thing. So this has been a really inspiring conversation. I know everybody that's listening is going to be inspired. We have all those ups and downs, and you've shared again your failures and your vulnerability with us, and allowed us a peek into your life, and have seen just through the conversation. So thank you so much, Mariana. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. It's been
Yeah.
amazing. Thank you for the opportunity.
So, do you have anything else to say? Maybe a special quote or anything? I know you gave us the word Ubuntu, but anything else that you would like to say about, just being and doing the best version of yourself?
One of my favorite things to do is asking questions, and we talked about this in a different way. But we ask questions and not expect the answer. So we continuously ask a question. There's so much uncertainty in life around us, as you said. The world is changing, people are changing, even situations are changing, and we are not expected to have all the answers. We should not
Exactly.
have all these answers. We're dealing with new things. Our brain is not even wired yet. It's not evolving fast enough as the world is evolving.
Right.
But our responsibility is to continue asking questions. What is my impact? What am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be? And be open to receive the answers, because when we receive the answers, it's out of control. The same thing that happened with my PhD. I kept on asking the universe, when is my PhD coming? I would like to do a PhD, and just let it go. I think the most important thing of self-discovery and going from one season to another is continuously be curious and ask questions without expecting an answer and without a deadline of when the answer should come to me.
Yeah. So wise. Yeah, it is that whole be curious, and just let it happen. Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mariana. In the show notes down below, you will be able to find how you can connect with Mariana. I highly recommend you following her on both Instagram and LinkedIn, as I do, and it's a great part of my day to connect in with what she's doing. And Mariana, just thank you again for being here, for inspiring us, for being vulnerable.
Thank you. My pleasure, Lauren. Thank you so much.